The United States was responsible for a massacre that killed and injured many innocent Puerto Ricans. And some people commented, are you going to talk about the Puerto Ricans that shot up Congress? And this is what they're talking about. In the 50s, four Puerto Rican nationalists opened fire in the House chamber and displayed the Puerto Rican flag. They didn't kill anyone, but they did injure 5 Congress members. What you might not know is that at least one of the shooters was in part radicalized because of that massacre that happened almost 20 years before. That was Rafael Cancel Miranda. See, he was only 7 years old when that first massacre happened, but he says he remembers his mom coming home with her white dress covered in blood because she had to drag herself over the bodies of the victims. In an interview, he said, that's when I knew we had an enemy, and he went on to resist U.S. rule in Puerto Rico. He went to prison because he refused to be drafted into the U.S. military and serve in the Korean War, and he participated in the shooting in Congress. Up until the end of his life, he said he did not regret it. A video about how the United States was responsible for
In Washington, D.C., ruthless, fanatic violence erupted in the halls of Congress. 3 men and a woman believed to be members of the Puerto Rican nationalist gang that in November 1950 attempted the assassination of President Truman opened fire from the visitors' gallery of the House of Representatives. 5 congressmen were hit: Ben F. Jensen of Iowa, Clifford Davis of Tennessee, Kenneth Roberts of Alabama, George H. Fallon of Maryland, and Albert Bentley of Michigan, who was seriously injured. Observers noted the attack came as the Inter-American Conference opened in Venezuela, and it suggested the motive may have been to arouse anti-United States feeling in Latin America through an act of apparently blind violence carefully calculated to inflame America's relations with her neighbors. Estimates of the numbers of shots fired range from 15 to 30. And each bullet hole found is a grim reminder to those who were present of the terrible surprise attack. The gang, seized by shocked bystanders as they emptied their guns, was held at police headquarters as a widespread search was launched for others who shared in the plot. To Irving Forrest, Rafael Miranda, Mrs. Lolita Lebron, Andre Cordero, the gun wielders, and to their accomplices goes the evil distinction of having perpetrated a criminal outrage almost unique in America's history. Wanton violence that shocked and stirred the nation and did only harm to the cause of the Puerto Rican people.
Bullet holes can be seen in the House chamber from shots fired in 1954 by Puerto Rican nationalists.
March the 1st, 1954, and that's when the 4 Puerto Ricans entered the Capitol and the House gallery where I was working and began to shoot into the chamber. 5 members of Congress were wounded. No one died. I was a staffer at that time in the gallery, and our position was to sit at the apex of the gallery. And we took notes and kept abreast of what was happening. At that time, we were debating a bill which is almost very much in the news today. It was called the Bracero Bill. It was a bill allowing immigrant workers from the south of our borders to come into California and Arizona and New Mexico to work the fields and harvest the fruit and things like that. And it was pretty controversial even then. And I turned around, noticed some people came in the door, which was to my left, upstairs, and then I turned around and looked at them, and, I figured they were just tourists like so many people, and I paid no more attention to them. For some reason or another, I've never been able to fathom this, I decided I couldn't hear very well, and I still have that problem today. And so I moved my seat further down the aisle. We had stools there, so I could be almost directly above the speaker's desk, so I could hear better, which was true. You could hear better. And it wasn't 10 seconds after I moved that I heard this loud popping noise, pow, pow, pow. And I turned around in my seat to my left and looked up, and I see these people are standing up with guns in their hands, and a woman was standing with them, and she had a big flag. and she was unfurling the flag, waving the flag back and forth, and I ducked underneath the ledge. We had a ledge, a writing ledge, and a phone right there. And I subsequently found out I cut my hand, and I got on the phone and to my intercom to our office, and I said, "There's a shooting going on out here," to my boss, and everybody was scurrying and running around, and I noticed basically some people who were in the gallery, visitors, who were grappling with these people and pushing them out the door.
I was in the back benches in the corner waiting to be called to go to the various members' chairs to determine what they needed. A call came in. I was in the first chair. I got up to go, and I took about 2 or 3 steps, and I recall hearing what I thought at the time sounded like firecrackers. A lot, almost as if you lit a pack of firecrackers and threw them. Fast, rapid reports. But in reality, after the third step, I got sprayed with what made me feel was sand or ash or stone. And as a young man, I had done a lot of target practice in quarries. So I was well aware of what a bullet does when it hits and glances off a stone. It sets off a spray. And it felt like the same thing. And immediately I remember thinking, by golly, these are gunshots. They're not firecrackers. So I hit the floor. And that's right behind the elevated floor of the house. And then within a matter of a few moments, the firing ceased, and there was a lot of commotion on the floor and disorganization. But because I had an early realization of what was going on, my first instinct to see whether anyone was hurt. And my best friend, as a matter of fact, who was also a page, Bill Emerson, who I'd met just a year and a half before that time, but we were roommates and best friends at school. He was also in the corner when my assignment was made. Immediately I got up and I got Bill, and we both went onto the floor, and we determined that they needed stretchers, and some people were wounded. So we tried to organize the pages and other people to help us out to get these conveyances. And over the process of the next half hour or so, we participated in carrying 3 of the members out to the ambulances, and the last member that we took out, we went to the hospital with him. It's now a famous picture in several respects. It's the picture of the year 1954 in Life magazine, and it was taken right outside the doors of the house as we're starting on down the steps of the Capitol. The fellow with his finger pointing in front is my best friend, Bill Emerson. He was a member of Congress from Missouri and a page with me. And then I'm immediately behind him on the stretcher with the glasses on there. That's me when I was 15 years old. Then another page is on the other side, Bill Goodwin from Michigan. And the 3 of us were involved in carrying out about 3 members of Congress. We did not anticipate that it would ever happen. It was, a very calm place where government activity was being carried on, and it was open to the public. We didn't ever think that anyone would violate that friendliness or that openness, but they did. And I realized that that would significantly change the Congress in the future and democracy in a large way, that people now were acting in terrorist activity to accomplish something. And so I'd have to say probably it was wasn't the earliest terrorist activities in the United States by a long shot, but was certainly the earliest in my lifetime.
I want to give all honor and glory to Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shai, Bahashem, Rakakadash. Double honors to the elders and apostles of GMS whom I learned from. Shalom, peace, blessings to the hopeful elect, preaching his word in truth and sincerity. And to your ribs, to your sisters out there learning science and staying in order. Right? As we saw, speaking on Ephraim, you could hear a lot of the stuff from the book War on All Puerto Ricans. I believe his name is Carlos Abiso Campos, who was basically the Ephraimite Malcolm X of the movement, who was around these times. There was a lot going on where there was oppressing Ephraim, sending them to wars and, not letting them be free, not even letting them rock their own flag. It was actually illegal at that point. And they committed terrorist acts in the island, so they retaliated. You know, it's what happens when you push Jake too far, man. Ephraim wasn't having it, right? But you see how the enemy, the archers, right? Archer is a man who holds the weapons, and Esau was blessed with the sword, right? And the archers are always at Ephraim's neck, man. They even overtook Gad, man. Said a troop shall overcome, but he shall overcome in the last. Genesis 49. Which brings us here back to Genesis 49. Start at verse 22. Let me get the correct Bible here. Genesis 49. Start at verse 22. Joseph is a fruitful bow, even a fruitful bowl by a well, right? A bowl is basically what you eat out of, like a cereal bowl, right? And it's full of fruit. Basically, the island itself is the bowl in which the fruit sits, right? The island of what they call Puerto Rico, rich port, which is they're not rich. They're not a really rich port. They were just called that by the archers after they conquered it, and noticed that they had a bunch of gold and stuff like that, so they were oppressed and robbed of those things. So this is talking about them being a tribe that multiplies, right? Joseph is a fruitful bowl, even a fruitful bowl by a well, right? Because Puerto Rico is surrounded by water. It says whose branches run over the wall, right? Which the branches extend, and they are more Puerto Ricans outside of the island than they are in the actual bowl itself. They actually fulfilled Genesis 49 because Puerto Rico happened to be the most heavily populated island with people in the whole world, right? Like on my mom's side, there's 17 aunts and uncles, including her, and my father's side there's 11. So they decided to start clipping them, giving them, sterilizing them and tying their tubes and stuff like that. But that's not what we're here for, right? We're on verse 23. The archers have sorely grieved them, right? They were always oppressing them, cutting off their limbs if they weren't doing the right work, cutting babies out of their bellies, right? Things of that nature. He says, and shot at him and hated him, right? It was an act of war. It was an act of war. It says, Salakia, verse 23, the archers have sorely grieved him and shot at him and hated him. Verse 24, but his bow abode in strength, and the arms of his hands were made strong by the hands of the almighty power of God, Salakia, of Jacob, right, which is Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahushai. From thence is the shepherd, the stone of Israel, right? Because at the end, Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahushai is going to strengthen Ephraim and his other tribesmen and set them against the archers. Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahushai is going to strengthen Ephraim at the end, and he will go at his head. Right? This is prophecy. This is what we look forward to get those spiritual powers to go at him. Right? He's gonna wake up Judah first. Judah's gonna then wake up the other tribes. And Ephraim, being the head tribe of the northern tribe, will motivate the other tribes to go at, to come in this truth. And then eventually when we become the hunters, we go back to our warrior state, man. We go at Esau's head, man, for what the crimes he's did, right? This is Zechariah chapter 9, verse 13. When I have bent Judah for me, and filled the bowl with Ephraim, right? That's when the northern kingdom, southern kingdom are, came back together in full harmony, right? They're going to be a threshing instrument, and they're going to be weaponized, right? It says, and raise up thy sons, O Zion. Right? He's talking about the entire Israel, against thy sons, O Greece, which is the Edomites, right? The Grecians, who did all kinds of evils in the time of the Maccabees to Judah, right? Revelation says that Yahweh Hashem Yahushai is going to return and visit those who pierced him, right? He's going to have the first blow, man. But at the end of the day, Israel's going to become hunters, right? And it says, and made thee, it says, against thy sons, O Greece, and made thee as the sword of a mighty man. So the mighty man, being Yahushai, is going to wield the Israelites as a weapon and unleash them onto the Gentiles. Verse 14, and Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahushai shall be seen over them, and his arrow shall go forth as the lightning, and Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahushai the power shall blow the trumpet, and shall go with whirlwinds of the south. Right? He's gonna move about, you know what I'm saying, just destroying, pertaining to the book of Habakkuk. Right? It says, and Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahushai of armies or of hosts, as it says, shall defend them. Right? We're going to be working together to fan these people out, bring them out of the caves, right? And utterly destroy them and subject them and give them the cup that, you know, they shall drink the dregs of, man. They're going to drink double. It says, and they shall devour and subdue with sling, stones, and they shall drink and make a noise as through wine, and they shall be filled like bowls, and as the corners of the altar. Right? And that's what we look forward to, get that crown, man, to be of the elect, man, to get in those chariots. That's what we look forward to. Verse 16, and Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahushai, their power shall save them in that day as the flock of his people, for they shall be as stones of a crown, right? And stones, like on the ephods, represent the tribes. And Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahushai is going to keep us close, man. We're going to be basically a part of his crown, his rulership, right? Lifted up as an ensign upon his hand, his land. Verse 17, for how great is his goodness and how great is his beauty. Corn shall make the young men cheerful, and new wine the maids. And that's what we look for, man, to be able to put our hands on the necks of our enemies, man. Receive that crown, man. That's what we, you know, have to have faith, man, patience, man. That we will have these things, man. Our work shall not be in vain. With that, I'm gonna say shalom.